Today's video is sponsored by Babbel, which is my favourite language learning app. Babbel is the best app in the market right now, providing award-winning courses in French, Spanish, German, Italian, and many more languages. Amo estudiar idiomas. I have a goal of becoming fluent in Spanish, as well as travelling to Spanish-speaking countries, and have been using Babbel on a daily basis, learning through reading, writing, listening, and speaking activities. I am also studying Italian and Scandinavian languages on the app. What I love about Babbel is that unlike other language learning apps, the courses have been created by genuine speakers of the languages and don't run via an algorithm or computer-generated material. And furthermore, the course content prepares a learner for real-life situations. There are no adverts, and you can learn offline too, which is a huge bonus. And doing between 10 to 15 minutes of Babbel a day gets you speaking a new language within weeks. There have been fantastic new additions to the app. Now with Babbel Live, you can add live classes to your existing subscription for an additional fee or just subscribe to them as a standalone product. And there are also brand new features such as short stories, a podcast, and culture clips. Head to the link in the description to buy 6 months and get 6 months free on a Babbel subscription for a limited time only. Your first lesson on Babbel is also free. Thank you to Babbel for sponsoring this video. At approximately 12:35 a.m. on Sunday the 18th of January 1920, a police constable wandered through Lawrence Street in Chelsea, London, when he noticed plumes of smoke exiting a door through an archway of the Cross Keys, a saloon bar, also referred to in sources as the Cross Keys Inn. He steadily entered, saw a stack of sacks and sawdust aflame, and blew his whistle. Within moments, the fire brigade arrived on the scene and extinguished the fire. Emergency services swiftly followed, and to Constable Brett's surprise, a member of the fire crew had risen up the cellar stairs and brought a woman's body to the safety of the saloon floor. Resuscitation was attempted. However, sadly, the unnamed female, who had suffered head injuries and had minor burns over her body, passed away from her injuries. Neither Brett nor his colleagues reported any suspicious activity, had seen any persons of interest, or heard any screams that night. A Pomeranian dog was present at the scene, but it was unharmed and did not seem distressed. The dog frequented the saloon and would usually bark upon meeting strangers. However, there was no report of such behaviour. The woman was quickly identified as 53-year-old Frances Buxton, who was the landlady of the establishment, and had died before midnight on the 17th of January. A barmaid at the Cross Keys, Elizabeth Mitchell, stated to authorities that she had been working for Frances Buxton from 7 o'clock until closing time each working day, approximately 10:30 p.m, and noted that every day a female cleaner and 2 males, Mr. Henry Whitehead and Mr. Henry John Penn, frequently attended the public house and carried out various odd jobs, including assisting the deceased with tasks. The trio were ruled out as having been involved in the crime. Discussing the night in question, Elizabeth stated that it was incredibly busy at the Cross Keys and estimated that the night's takings must have been between £18 and £20, approximately £870 in today's British currency. She also explained that Frances Buxton had been wearing a diamond crescent brooch, a diamond star brooch, a gold bracelet, a wedding ring, and a single stone diamond ring, some of which were missing when Frances's body was recovered. Of those missing were the crescent brooch and the gold bracelet. Jewellers and pawnbrokers around the area were asked whether they had seen the items, but the searches proved fruitless. These items were never found. Elizabeth revealed that prior to Frances's death, she had been engaged in relationships with 2 different men. Frances had lived alone for many years, but on occasion, a licensee of a hotel, a decorator's manager, and an architect visited her. Upon being interviewed, the architect admitted having had borrowed money from the deceased, but always had paid her back, although when Frances died, he owed her approximately £7. He also possessed a key to the saloon and stated that he used to visit Frances when she was in ill health. He said he was on affectionate terms with Frances Buxton and frequently visited her when his wife was away, and numerous letters he had written to Frances were recovered from the premises. Although it seemed obvious that they had been engaged in an intimate relationship, there was no evidence to suggest that the architect was involved in the murder. He did, however, recall an incident where he witnessed Frances securing a window shut, and he was curious to know as to why she was doing it. She told him there was a young man who had been working behind the bar in the saloon, and she was concerned that the young man would return. The licensee of a hotel, the Rose Hotel in Maidenhead to be exact, was found to have been an elderly gentleman who had been friends with the Buxtons for decades. Police did not believe he was involved and also ruled him out. The decorator's manager proved a person of interest due to the fact he was mentioned in Frances's will. He was to receive all of her property and possessions, except for a few jewellery items. Like the architect, he would visit Frances fairly frequently and had known her for approximately a decade, having first met her when she was licensee of the Old George public house in Kensington. Police were suspicious of the 68-year-old due to the fact he would have benefited enormously from Frances's death. However, his testimony was airtight on the day and the night in question and was ruled out by police. Henry John Penn stated to police that Frances had been victim of an assault which was carried out by a business partner named only as Mr. Cutting. This man was never traced by police. At the time of her death, Frances had been married. However, she had not shared residence with her husband for at least 11 or 12 years. Frances's body was identified by her ex-husband, Frank Charles Buxton, who said that his reasons for divorce included the fact she was an eccentric individual and was not only a socialist but also was a suffragette. He stated that he had not seen Frances since August of 1919, and this was the sole occasion where they had met whilst separated. Frank had left London around 1908 and owned the Sussex Hotel located in Bexhill-on-Sea. He stated that Frances had been struggling with chronic bronchitis. Frank Buxton and Frances, whose maiden name was Poole, had married in the winter of 1888 in Toronto, Canada, when Frances was 23 and Frank was 28, and throughout their marriage they ran various public houses in London. Examining the scene, police found that there was blood in a hallway along with the remains of a smashed glass bottle, the latter of which was thought to have been the murder weapon. A wanted advert was placed in the newspapers, seeking a man with a cut hand in order to try and find the guilty party. Frances's cause of death was confirmed as heart failure due to shock and concussion as a result of a fractured skull, although there were indications that wire had been wrapped around her neck, suggesting that there had been an attempted asphyxiation. She had been deceased for approximately an hour before she was found and had suffered lacerations on the right side of her face and deep wounds to the left and top of her head. There was no report of forced entry and there was money in the till. Police were convinced that 2 men were responsible for the murder and thieving of the jewellery. A fingerprint was retrieved from the broken bottle, however, it was later found to be useless to the investigation. Witnesses in the saloon on the 17th of January told authorities that they had seen a man, approximately 40 years of age, around 6 feet tall, of a dark complexion, wearing a dark overcoat and a clothed peak cap obscuring his eyes. Customers, a clerk, a shipbroker's director, and a barmaid who worked at the Cross Keys departed at approximately 10 p.m, leaving the stranger alone in the saloon, specifically stating that they had never witnessed this particular individual in the bar previously. One of the witnesses was Lily Mitchell, daughter of the barmaid Elizabeth Mitchell. The man's description was shared in the newspapers, and a male came forward to confirm that he was the stranger in question, and it was later determined that he was not involved in the death of Francis Buxton. For a time, police believed that Frank Buxton fitted the description of the tall stranger, but several witnesses could not verify whether he was the unidentified man. The clerk was questioned by police as he had taken a bus very late in the evening to Bloomsbury, and he replied by stating he wished to see some bustling city life before returning to his residence in Alderney Street. He knew of Francis's schedule and admitted that he tended to stay in the Cross Keys after hours. Once again, he was ruled out of the investigation. Henry John Penn recalled the stranger, stating, "I observed a tall man in the private bar. He was a man of about 36, and I believe he was wearing a blue suit and a brown overcoat. He had a fair moustache." Other witnesses described the man as having grey hair and a long-drawn face. Penn continued, "I spent the afternoon with Mrs. Buxton, and I said to her in a jocular way, 'I see someone in the bar trying to give you the glad eye.' She said, 'Yes, that man has been in the house 3 or 4 days. He has been foxing me, but I have got him set.' It appeared as though the stranger was not so to Francis, as witnesses believed their body language and conversation suggested that the deceased and the stranger knew each other well, with the latter attempting to flirt with Francis. A witness who was in the Cross Keys on the 16th of January remembered that he and Francis had a conversation about the stranger, and Francis appeared paranoid that she was being watched. She told him that the whiskey drinker had tried to find out more regarding her private life and whether she lived alone. After an exhaustive investigation, police failed to find the perpetrator. They strongly believed that there was more to the motive than just robbery, and it was possibly a very personal attack. It was discovered that the deceased had suffered from venereal disease, which allegedly took more than 8 years to leave her body system. One of the many men she was in relationships with may have contracted the disease and, in revenge, wanted her dead, but there is, again, no evidence to back up this theory. In 1927, a convict confessed to the murder of Francis Buxton. However, it was found to be a hoax. In 1932, the police received a postcard from an anonymous sender who stated that they, who had been recently released from prison in New York, were responsible for the killing and signed it, "One Who Knows." The individual was later identified and was found to have been working as a welder in Brooklyn, New York at the time of the murder, and had travelled to London only twice, both in 1917. Over a century has passed since the murder of Francis Buxton, and unfortunately, the identity of the person or persons who took her life remain a mystery.